Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Jake Paul faces his biggest challenge yet on August 29th at the Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse in Cleveland, Ohio, facing four-time defending welterweight champion Tyron Woodley. The boxing event starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday with many fights throughout the night, including Tommy Fury versus Anthony Taylor, Charles Conwell versus Lucas Brian, among others. The exciting undercard will be between Amanda Serrano, 9-time 7-division world champion, versus Yamileth Mercado. However, the night will be ending with the main card of Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley going for 8 rounds. Unlike Jake's first 3 matchups, fellow YouTuber Anderson Gibb in 2020, ex-NBA star Nate Robinson in 2020, and retired MMA star Ben Askren in 2021, Tyron Woodley is an active fighter who, despite the fact has racked up a few professional losses as of late, has a net positive record of winning 20+ matches, with knockouts due to surprising striking skills. See matches such as Josh Kochnick and Robbie Lawler to see this knockout power of the infamous clincher. Tyron Woodley is on a completely different level than all of Jake's previous matchups, providing Jake a potential challenge this time around. Tyron Woodley is a powerful striker, which is something completely foreign to Jake Paul's previous opponents. Anderson Gibbs' poor performance, round 1 TKO, Nate Robinson's hasty and lack of defense resulting in a round 2 knockout, and Ben Askren's upset with a round 1 knockout despite a professional MMA record of 19-2 with 6 KOs under his belt. Despite endorsements by fellow YouTuber / boxer KSI, Jake Paul being the favorite according to the odds, with Jake Paul being at a -164, meaning he is believed to be the winner by approximately 62%, versus Tyler with +130, meaning his odds of winning dropped to 43%, making betting odds as a whole skewed in Jake's favor as the safer bet. The general public seems to be in favor once again with Jake Paul's opponent Tyron Woodley, with notable names such as Mayweather and the MMA community as a whole preying on Jake Paul's downfall. George Masvidal, MMA fighter, has recently stated that Jake will be knocked out by Tyron Woodley simply because Tyron Woodley can actually throw hands, unlike Ben Askren. Paired with more fighting experience as a whole, it would be an upset if Jake managed to win against Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley has also been currently training with Mayweather's camp, and videos of his training and sparring sessions have been released showing some seemingly impressive boxing skills. Whether these skills will translate to the ring on August 29th will yet to be seen. Jake definitely has more experience in the boxing space than Tyron Woodley, and this will prove to be an advantage in his favor, but Jake has never fought a fighter of Tyron Woodley's caliber professionally. Time after time, we have seen that boxing experience trumps fighting experience as a whole. For example, Mayweather versus MMA fighters and celebrities coming into every fight being very technical and calculative. Jake isn't particularly known for being calculative, but more so known for being very dominant in the ring, dictating the pace and spacing in every fight, and ending each altercation before the end of the second round. This fight will provide the biggest payday in Tyron Woodley's professional fighting career. This will undoubtedly be a factor in Tyron's motivation for this fight. However, there is no doubt that the previous 4-time defending welterweight champion out of Ferguson, Missouri will come to this fight more than prepared to face Jake, knowing there's more money on the line, but his pride and professional image as well. Jake has been seen training in isolation in Puerto Rico, not releasing too much about his approach to this fight outside of remaining sharp and being more serious for the fight. Other than the few statements here and there, Jake has been surprisingly tight-lipped with how his training is going outside of constant sparring for dozens of rounds. When interviewing Jake Paul, interviewers such as ESPN seem to be more interested in the infamy of Jake Paul rather than his boxing skills, giving Jake room to surprise his opponent with his improvement during fight night. Interviewers frequently ask more about Jake's antics, such as visiting UFC 261 and having a mob of people chant F Jake Paul, or his social media antics surrounding other fighters like Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Jake has claimed his boxing career and its criticism stems from his origins as a social media star, and instead of shying away from his origins while transitioning to the professional boxing space, he plans to use his social media skills and platform to continue the boxing community by providing circus-like content to help promote each fight. Not to mention the fact that he will have a home field advantage in this fight, being held at Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse in Cleveland, Ohio, Jake's hometown. Jake Paul has managed to control each of his professional fights so far, particularly coming out of each altercation unscathed and without having to endure more than 2 rounds in his professional career, all fights stopping with either a KO or TKO. Jake Paul masterfully uses his reach and power to keep his opponents at bay while causing big damage. We've seen Jake knock out Nate Robinson while moving backwards, showing that Jake knows how to bring power into his punches from particularly anywhere by planting at a moment's notice. Would you factor in Nate Robinson, Anderson Gibb, and the abysmal performance of Ben Askren into the greatness of Jake Paul and his boxing skills, or more to the lack of skills of his opponents? Professional fighters and fighting commentators praise Jake's offense and confidence. Will Tyron Woodley be the first to extend into the later rounds with Jake Paul or place Jake on the back foot during the fight? We'll have to see. As we've seen before with MMA fighters attempting boxing and gassing out fairly quickly, for example, McGregor versus Mayweather in 2017, striking ability doesn't necessarily translate to boxing ability, meaning Tyron Woodley has to break a lot of ingrained MMA tactics and fighting skills to properly prepare for Jake in the ring. There is certainly no doubt that Jake has been polishing his boxing skills, looking better and better from fight to fight. Joe Rogan himself commented on Tyron Woodley's boxing skills, saying he punches really hard, but he doesn't punch like a boxer. He throws big bombs and sets up takedowns, which is obviously not a thing that you can do in boxing. Joe also believes that Jake Paul is a good boxer and that Tyron Woodley having the space to hone in on only boxing may not be enough to take down Jake Paul. Boxing requires a lot of patience with stamina to back it up, and we haven't seen a fight with Jake Paul that has placed him under the pressure of gassing out besides the amateur fight against Deji during Jake Paul's boxing debut, where Jake has undoubtedly improved many-fold since then. By no means, however, does this mean Jake Paul has mastered his boxing skills. Recent training footage has shown trainers having to constantly remind Jake to move his head during the fight. Considering Jake hasn't fought an opponent with similar height or reach, he has excelled at keeping his distance from his opponents, and this may occur once again with Tyron Woodley being only 5'9" with a 74-inch reach, facing Jake Paul's 6'1" with 76-inch reach. That's quite the advantage. We can assume Tyron Woodley has a plan for this size difference in mind due to the fact that infamous boxer Floyd Mayweather is training him for this fight. Sparring sessions with fighters well over 6 feet has been standard in Tyron Woodley's training, especially recently sparring with Anthony White Chocolate Martinez, who is 6'4". Tyron Woodley continues to train mercilessly to prepare for this fight against Jake Paul. Jake Paul has been doing the same, but carrying himself with unprecedented confidence that some may mistake for his cockiness. Millions of dollars are on the line, and a tattoo bet with Tyron Woodley, and they're all factors playing into the fight potentially going against Tyron Woodley, who may not be accustomed to these pressures as Jake Paul has proven to overcome inside and outside the ring. The fighting community as a whole has mixed feelings about these celebrity matches, and the popularization of Jake Paul as a professional fighter to some of this has been well needed breath of fresh air that has provided life to a slowly waning sport. To others, these matches and celebrities such as Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and other internet sensations have done disservice to the legitimacy of boxing. We can come to the same conclusion that the numbers alone show that the boxing has increased in popularity in the youth and young adults as a result of the YouTube boxing scene. Jake Paul, being Jake Paul, has no doubt that he will be victorious this coming Sunday, and this confidence may definitely be warranted given his flawless track record so far. Tyron Woodley has also shown a bit of confidence in this upcoming fight, promising to grant the Jake Paul naysayers a sure victory. Jake Paul has completely rebranded himself to be a boxer and bringing attention to the sport as a whole. So no matter the outcome of the fight, we can expect to see more of him in the ring beyond what's going to happen Sunday. I wonder what Tyron Woodley's next action may be if he beats Jake Paul. Will he continue to box professionally or take on other potential celebrity boxers, or will this be the end of his boxing career? We are expecting a great fight between these two athletes on Sunday, and this being one of the biggest fights of Jake Paul's career so far, placing even more eyes on him than before. Will Jake, the problem child Paul, defeat Tyron Woodley, the chosen one, and silence all the naysayers who claim Jake only picks fights with athletes who cannot fight? Or will Tyron Woodley tap into his prime instincts of fighting and wipe the floor with Jake, ending Jake's boxing success? Well, to find that out, we're going to have to wait till August 29th and pay-per-view about $59.99. Who do you think will win on Sunday? Comment below whether you're Team Jake Paul or Team Tyron Woodley. Who will be Jake's next opponent?